This video gives a short introduction to modeling thermal zones in Sketchup for Sefaira analysis. First, a quick explanation of thermal zones. Heat gains and losses are not uniformly distributed within a building, or even within a single floor plate. South-facing areas will have much more solar gain than north-facing, and an office space will have higher internal loads than a residence. And we create zones to more accurately capture this uneven distribution of heat. There are three types of zoning available in Sefaira's web application, which you see here. You can find them under the Zoning tab. The first is one zone per floor. This is the default for the plugins in both SketchUp and Revit, and it means that each floor plate is an individual zone. It's useful for large-scale massing comparisons when the interior layout isn't known. The next strategy is perimeter core zoning, and this essentially creates zones offset from the exterior perimeter of the building, as you can see here, which is a good approximation for most early stage analysis when the design is still evolving and the layout is still being informed. It's useful for studying various envelope improvements or alternatives, thermal comfort calculations, or comparative sizing of central HVAC equipment. Neither of these types, one floor per zone or basic perimeter core zoning, require that anything changes in the 3D model. Sefaira will automatically create perimeter core zones based upon the shape of the floor plates in your model. The last type is called one zone per room. This is the most specific and the most accurate, and pulls zone information from the geometry of the SketchUp model. You would use this type of zoning for zone-level HVAC equipment sizing or detailed thermal comfort analysis. It does require, of course, that you add zones to your 3D model. So let's take a look at how you might go about creating these room-by-room zones in a SketchUp model. What I have here is a model without any zones currently drawn. Let me remove the roofs so you can see the floor plate. And the way to create zones is simply to draw them on the floor plate. So let's say that in this case, we want to create some classrooms along the south edge of the building here. I can just outline the shape of these classrooms. Perhaps we have offices on this section of the building. And simply by creating these separate floor plates, you can see when I select them that each floor plate is a different surface now. I've now created geometry that will be read as zones when we upload it into the web application. Note that you don't need to draw interior partitions. Simply creating separate areas on the floor plate is sufficient for Sefaira to recognize zones. Also note that the name room-by-room zoning is somewhat of a misnomer. Zones are not necessarily equivalent to rooms. In fact, modeling each room as a zone is often not necessary or recommended and could cause your model to slow down. Instead, best practice is to group together rooms with a similar use type on each orientation of the building. So for instance, we might have multiple classroom buildings in this zone, but because they're all the same use type and all facing the same orientation, I can group them together because they have equivalent loads. Once you've drawn all of the zones that you want in your SketchUp model, be sure to check the entity types, as always. And of course, remember to add your ceilings or roofs back into your model. And when it's ready, you can upload it to Sefaira's web application to see the zoning options that I showed you at the beginning of this video.